God's peace and goodness to you today. Pax et bonum, my good. But I want to be a disciple and not just a convert kind of listener. Welcome. Welcome from Southwest Spudlandia. Spudlandia, where you might just find yourself driving a country road, for a couple miles, going 20 miles per hour behind a huge combine harvester. Me, I love the smell of harvests. And hey, I love the fact that you want to go deeper into the Christian faith, the Christian worldview. Thanks for joining me wherever you are across our 1 in a trillion planet. A special shout out to all my listeners in Eastern Europe today. Love having you with me. Today's the second in a new series, Conversations with my friend Mark. We're going to be talking about the difference between killing and murder. And for those of you who like thinking through ethical angles, this will be right up your alley. And for those of you who think you've already thought through killing and murder, I believe we'll have some fresh insights for your consideration. But first, there are professional ways to do things, and then there are makeshift, honey, would you run get me the duct tape? Ways of doing things. And the makeshift ways in the end cost more money. They take more time later. So, do it right the first time. When it comes to your SoCal roofing problems, call Gallerini Roofing at 714-244-6567. They do residential and commercial roofing jobs. They're bonded, licensed, insured, and they have decades worth of experience. Gallerini knows how to do the job with excellence and professionalism. So like I said, phone them up at 714-244-6567 and get the job done right. Gallerini Roofing, a proud sponsor of the Uncensored Unprofessor. What a great day. Welcome again to the Uncensored Unprofessor. I'm here with my friend Mark Cummings from just down the road in Spudlandia. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you, Ed. Thanks for the invite. Looking forward to discussing things.
I always wanted to... Mark was a postal carrier. For how many years did you do that?
25 years.
25 years, and he's told me so many weird stories, funny stories. I had dreamed for years of co-writing a book with you called Going Postal.
There's lots of stuff to write on there.
Oh, from women flashing you to dogs biting you to the mental horror that is working for the Postal Service.
It's the ultimate red tape.
Oh my gosh. Today we want to think with you, my listener, thanks for tuning in, about murder versus killing. So a little ethical topic. And to set this up, Mark and I live here in Spudlandia in Idaho. I'm in Boise. Mark's down the road 10, 12 minutes in Nampa. Ada County is where the Brian Kohberger trial was to be held. And 2 weeks ago, the prosecutor for the count actually, I think he may have been from up north in Moscow, way up in northern Idaho. They brought the trial down here. He settled out of court with Kohberger, made a plea deal to sentence him. If he would admit he was guilty, that he would be sentenced to 4 consecutive life sentences. And you guys probably remember, he's the stalker that went in at night and with a knife, a military knife, slashed the throats and stabbed to death 4 kids. It was in the news forever, and it's just overwhelmed Idaho with the story. And in this district prosecutor, without getting agreement from all the kids' families, let the murderer Kohberger plead down to 4 consecutive life sentences, plus they threw a bunch of other stuff on there that make it so he'll never get out of prison. Part of the families were happy with that he had done that. The murdered kids' parents were happy the district prosecutor did that, district attorney. Other family members felt betrayed that he did that, and it kind of had Idaho up in arms about what just happened and whether this guy got off, but it makes it personal what we're talking about, killing versus murder here. It was quite the awful, awful, gruesome story. But Mark, help us frame murder versus killing. What's the first thing that comes to your mind as we try to sort out the difference between murder and killing?
I think one of the big problems is there's a false moral equivalency that's out there.
That's so good.
So let's say you're a high school student. You walk by a playground and a fifth grader is pummeling a first grader, and you step in, and the fifth grader doesn't want to stop, so you've got to use force and knock him over, and then people will come to you and say, well, you're just as bad as him.
Right.
You used violence also.
Oh,
or if a
my
man
gosh.
comes into my house to shoot me with a gun, but I shoot him instead, Mark, you're just as bad. You used a gun and you killed also.
Yep.
There's no concept of the motivation and the differences there. They simply take the actions and say, there was death in both sides. It was killing, so all killing must be murder.
False moral equivalency. That sweeps through, my goodness, not only sweeps through murder and killing, that sweeps through a whole bunch of issues, that actually sweeps through international relations and struggles that I'm not going to bring up right now, but that notion of a false moral equivalency, beautiful, good place. Okay, sorry, keep going.
Yeah. I think there's also a struggle with the whole concept. There is justice and there's mercy, and both are present with God. And will be a tendency to say, "Hey, this is simply not just," to capital punishment or severe type of punishments, because God is a God of mercy.
Right.
And He is, but you have to pan that out and say, let's look in Scripture. Let's look at examples. I want to have the heart of God. I want to have His nature, but it isn't always that simple to simply say a virtue word and say that this should define the whole discussion,
right?
Because it's a balance.
So per normal, when we come to controversial issues like this, I think it's important to define terms. So you said it, false moral equivalency, killing equals murder equals killing, all violence is bad. Well, actually, no. Locking criminals up is the use of force. That's a good thing. Putting handcuffs on drunken drivers and taking them to jail is a good thing. So there is an appropriate use of force. Murder, the wrongful killing of someone.
Mm-hmm.
And then we know there are layers of intent, right? Killing can just be someone accidentally shot someone accidentally crashed into someone. There's all kinds of ways that killing can happen, but murder involves some evil intent, so that by definition they're different. They're both involve death, but there's a soldier who's shooting in a war is not going to be guilty of murder, whereas a slasher in Moscow, Idaho, who breaks in at night with a knife is going to be convicted of wrongful termination of life, right? Murder.
Yes.
So that moral distinction is important.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And it takes a lot of thinking on the subject when you deal with different types of virtue, whether it's grace and works, whether it's mercy and justice. If you stay on the bumper sticker cliche level, you're really not going to be able to pan it out. And a lot of people, there's a lot of emotion behind this,
right?
And you need to step back and just say, okay, let's think this through in a lot of different angles.
Right.
I think I've noticed there's a tendency when you talk about love and God's mercy in society to always only focus on the individual. If you're going to be loving, you have to think about how the individual feels. And oftentimes the individual is the one that has been lawless and has done the crime.
Right.
And so let's get into the heart and mind and hurt of the individual. Let's not put any focus on society or those that he hurt. And so you simply spread lawlessness that way. I do want to love, and God is love. But at what point do you do things because you love society, not just the individual?
Right.
Because that's the entire focus of the media, the government, and the world system today is a concern for the lawless individual.
Right.
Well, God is concerned about all people, but I think there should be a
Right.
focus on society.
So they're saying, so what we see at work is the media and the outcry will be about the guy, usually, who committed murder, but there's zero love for society, is what you're saying.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. What must be done that this doesn't happen again? What motivation, what consequences, whatever, rather than simply say, he did something bad, how can we rectify this? How can we fix this problem? But the focus is always on the lawless.
Right.
And I'm like,
Person.
who do you care about? I
Yeah.
care about them, but I also care about society.
Care about all of us.
All of us.
Right?
Yeah.
Together.
And when I listen to the news, they usually won't interview the parent. They'll interview somebody else on the side where it supports the lawlessness that's
Right.
going on.
Right.
And so I don't look at that as balanced. I don't look at that as wise or biblical.
Right. So in a
Yeah.
Christian worldview, then we have to say, God said, thou shalt not murder. It actually isn't, thou shalt not kill, even though
Yeah.
I think that gets said more often in popular Christian culture. The command was, thou shalt not murder. And then that gets equated to an elimination of all killing, where I suppose at the extreme end, you have people saying we shouldn't eat fish,
Yes.
right? We shouldn't
Yeah.
eat poultry because that's the killing of life.
Yeah.
Would be like the extreme end of it. Well, actually,
Yeah.
you've blurred the categories there because murder is not a one-for-one with killing, even though they both involve death,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Yeah. And so, and to bring in love, which of course is seminal, foundational, we can't sacrifice that in a Christian worldview. That's essential. Then we bring in love, and to your point, society only seems to be concerned about love for the murderer, not for the people that were murdered.
Yes, and you go back to definitions. What do you mean by love? What do you mean by caring? What do you mean by these things? And if they're all defined wrong, we're going to reach the wrong consequences. Right. So I think biblically, Old Testament and New. Old Testament in Genesis 9:6, whoever sheds man's blood, by man his blood shall be shed. It's pretty clear in the Old Testament that God allows for that capital punishment.
Right. Commanded it.
He commanded it, yes.
Yeah.
And some would say, well, a lot has happened since then.
Right.
And God's revelation of his mercy through Christ
right.
is has been shown. And so it's different now in the New Testament. And yet Romans 13:4, which talks about government,
right.
It says it does not bear the sword for nothing,
right.
implying there's no indication here that God in the New Testament is saying, though I've furthered my revelation of mercy, and we're doing away with those things.
Right.
In fact, in verse 13:7 in Romans, it says, "Fear to whom fear is due." And some might say, well, in 1 Timothy 1:7, it says God has not given us a spirit of fear, but the nature of fear there is more like the fear of the Lord, a healthy respect for the consequences of lawlessness and doing wrong. And in a society that redefines love as just kind of mushy emotions and things, they're not going to grasp the concept of fear and how important that is.
Right.
It is important that we have a fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. And so Paul says in Romans, fear to whom fear is due.
Right.
And it is due because of severe punishments to the crime.
So just to jump in on that, because he uses the word sword there, and he does mean actual physical swords. So he's thinking of physical violence that the government is authorized to use. But more broadly, he's meaning governmental coercion for the sake of the good of everyone, right? So
Yes.
God has allowed governments to use force for the sake, again, of the good of society.
Yes.
Right? That's
Yes.
actually biblical through and through.
Yeah. It
Right?
is.
So
Yeah.
I just don't want to lose the notion that sword there meant swords.
Yes.
And he probably even has a good reference to capital punishment and beheadings that were going on.
Yes.
But more broadly, he's talking there about the appropriate governmental use of force for the sake of everyone's good.
Yes, the ideal of government.
Right. And now to your
Yeah.
point where you just were, that we should, believes God wants us to have an appropriate fear of that, is something that's entirely lost today.
I think it's lost. Yes, that we're about liberty and freedom and feeling good about ourselves, and any form of restraint seems to be something that's a negative.
Right.
Restraining your passions, restraining whatever, and so I remember going to Target, and I seen a picture of a girl in some clothes, and she looked like a tramp, and they're trying to sell these clothes, but the caption on the bottom was "No boundaries," and I was like, boy, that's society today.
Yeah.
And when you fear, that means you have a healthy respect and come under the authority of whether it's God himself or the truths and morals of society. When you fear them, and that's restraint, and that's not very popular today. So,
no, that's an excellent point.
And so it says in Romans 13 also, the government is a minister of God, an avenger who brings wrath upon those who practice evil.
Yeah.
And it's so, whatever that wrath is, it doesn't sound like a SWAT. This
Right.
is something severe.
Yeah.
This is something condoned and approved and
Well, let me just
necessary.
Yeah, but that's what I want to thank you for bringing this passage up, because to your opening remark, we're in the New Testament here in Romans, and unless you pit Paul against Jesus, which a whole bunch of people do because they don't like the atonement and other things that Christianity is about, unless you pit Paul against Jesus, Paul is referencing the same God that Jesus was teaching about.
Mm-hmm.
So when we get to the New Testament, it hasn't changed.
Yeah. Yeah.
The view of appropriate governmental use of force has not changed as we come into the New Testament, even though I think everyone wants to believe that with Jesus we have, well, my goodness, there were famous theologians and heretics through church history who believed that they were two different gods. The Old Testament God was this wrathful, vengeful God, and when Jesus shows up, he teaches us actually no, God's a God of love, and they're pitted against each other. But I don't believe at all that Jesus was doing that, and certainly Paul's not doing that in Romans. He thinks it's the same God.
Mm-hmm. And he says in a number of times in the Sermon on the Mount, and other times Jesus will say, "You have heard it said, but I say to you." But he had no such thing where he's saying, no, it's all about mercy and goodness and kindness now.
Right.
It's all about being nice. There's no adjustment formally about that. So I would imply that what was held throughout the Old Testament and by Paul would be, even if he doesn't overtly mention it, he's not overtly saying, no, that's all been done away with.
No, you're right. And that sort of, it brings up another layer to this whole murder versus killing, that Jesus was somehow so radical that he was no longer a Jew, which I've dealt with on so many shows. I don't want to take very much time today, but that's so popular out there in culture, even in big chunks of the church. Jesus was so radically different from Judaism that he wouldn't even talk about God the way a Jew would. And that is so far off the mark, it's absurd, because almost every single time that he's talking the way he does in the Gospels, he's quoting an Old Testament passage almost every single time.
Yes.
So we have weird interpretations of Jesus that are screwy. I'm sorry, shouldn't be so and that lead to weird and screwy interpretations of morality today. Like Jesus was somehow sanctioning a new morality.
Yes. Galatians says he was born under the law. He came to fulfill it.
Yeah.
And yes.
So that's a mess.
Yes.
Okay, so sorry. There's an appropriate place for fear in the law. The law is established. The Lord has established government as a means of common good.
Yes.
Securing the good of society. Where else were you going with that in 13? Sorry.
Well, the whole idea, people are either going to be motivated by love or they're going to be motivated by fear. I believe the masses are motivated by fear more than love. Would the ideal be everybody motivated by love?
Right.
That would be great. But as witnessed in societies where everything, the government falls apart, it descends into chaos rather quickly.
Right.
The people were ready for it. It wasn't this loving society, and now there's no authority.
Right.
And there's no crime because everybody just loves one another. It's a nice idea, but it just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And so, given that restraint is needed, and that would go back to I think the whole idea, whether man is basically good or basically evil.
Right.
And I believe it's biblical that man is fallen
Right.
and in a sinful nature. If that's the case, you're going to have a backing of fear and of warning, and that has to be sufficient.
Right.
And a person that believes man is basically good says it doesn't have to be very severe.
Right.
Because he wants to do good anyway. And if there are people that are just plain evil out there, and you care not just about an individual, but society, even
Right.
though the media won't focus on that.
No, at all.
Now, the question, I think, becomes, at what level of fear produces the restraint that's needed
Right.
to, if you, in fact, love society?
Right. Augustine is famous for having taught the law was necessary because of sin, and that government's necessary because of sin. I'm pretty sure Thomas Aquinas picks up on that. But the reformers, as they reconfigure Christianity, which that's its own hairball, but as they start to build Protestant societies, they're very much committed to the notion that human beings are fallen. Mm-hmm. Therefore, we need the necessary evil of government, because evildoers need to fear the repercussion of their evil deeds. That's the logic of it all, as it unpacks, particularly through Protestantism and now into America, because America was absolutely founded this way through Protestantism, that government's a necessary evil.
Yes.
And it should be there to put an appropriate fear in people's, or sometimes it's referred to as the thin blue line, the notion that exists in all of our minds. I better not go 62 and a 55. I better only go 59, because there might be a policeman up there with a radar gun who will pull me over for 62, but not for 59.
Yes.
Well, that's an appropriate fear
Yeah.
that is causing me to restrain the speed at which I'm traveling.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
And you're saying all that's biblically grounded.
It's biblically grounded, and even in parenting, we know, if I can just tell my child, "Hey, please don't do that again," that why take it higher than that? If it works, it works.
Yeah.
My goal is not to be as severe as I can.
Yeah.
The goal is to say, what does it take so that they don't have disobedient and foolish decisions? What consequences, what actions do I need on my part to train them? And so you have this idea of the of a punishment. I think in addition to simply restraining people, there's another factor that speaks truth to people, to say we need to define just how bad that was. So let's say you're a parent.
Okay, good, because no one talks that way. That's good.
And your two boys got in an argument, and one of them took a bat and broke the tooth out of his brother. And the parent comes home and says, no video games tonight for you. And the parent has just defined how bad that was.
That's good.
And he's deceiving. He's not training
Which
the kids.
Not very bad.
It's not very bad.
If you took a baseball bat and broke out some teeth or a tooth and your punishment was no video game, you're telling your kid that wasn't very bad.
Yes.
Right?
You're confusing them.
Yeah.
You're deceiving them as to the true nature of reality.
Good for you. That's
and so you have to. Now, what if you only focused on the child that used the bat? Well, what about his feelings, and what about his self-esteem, and what? I'm saying you still care and love him, but you still have to define wrong, and to the severity of the wrong, you have to define it in some way.
Because it's important not only for the kid who swung the bat, it's important for his brother.
Yes.
It's important for how the family lives together to say some actions are more grievous and evil than other actions.
Yes.
So you're thinking of society, or you're thinking of the community to frame it that way, right?
Yes. And that would be the ideal. You're going to go back to a situation, though, where at what level do you define killing and actually murdering somebody?
Right.
That level seems to be, in Scripture, a man's life if he took a life. You were just defined, hey, I'm not going to just be in jail. I took a life, now it'll cost me my life. And that's where you get the moral equivalency, false moral equivalency things come in and say, aren't you just doing the same thing? Aren't you training that if there's violence, you're going to respond by violence?
Right.
And
I've seen the bumper sticker.
Yeah.
How do we prove that killing people is wrong by killing people?
Yes.
That's that false moral equivalency again.
And we're back to that, saying there's no differences in motivations, in reasons for doing things. We strictly look at the actions. It was both killing. That doesn't make any sense.
Right.
And is it bad to have somebody put to death? I wish it weren't that case, but you still have to go back and say, what will it take to define it correctly? What will it take to actually restrain people? And I think some people, they're evil enough that a minor restraint, 6 months in jail won't slow them down.
No.
And I care about society.
Well, I do too. And when I would lecture on capital punishment in class, I would shock the students by saying, I absolutely care about restraint. I actually care about society, and I care about the common good. I also, though, care about justice.
Yeah.
And I would tell the students, if it's not just to enact capital punishment, then it should never be done.
Yeah.
And if it is just to enact capital punishment, then it must be done. And I would have students falling out of their chair because they've never heard anybody talk that way. Mm-hmm. So justice becomes a matter involved in how we view killing versus murder. Mm-hmm. That in the eyes of God, in the mentality, the culture, the shared value system of all of us who live together, there are certain things that must happen when this occurs. Otherwise, reality will fall apart.
Yeah.
And we've watched reality fall apart over the last 10, 12 years. It's fascinatingly terrorizing to just see people give up on any moral sensibility, and then, what a shocker, reality just suddenly fell apart in front of our eyes.
Yes. Lawlessness just seemed to spread for no reason at all.
Yeah. And I think justice and restraint, justice and the common good, I think justice and the love of society are just two sides of the same coin. Mm-hmm. I don't think they're pitted against one another.
Yes. I think when you're only concerned about how good you are because you are nice or you have warm, fuzzy feelings inside, you'll stop at all the mushy emotional arguments. But when you actually care about society and say, what do we need to do to have it stop? Because there are very evil people out there, and they will not be restrained by minor
Right.
consequences.
You don't get.
Yeah.
You killed that guy. You don't get to watch video games tonight.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hello, Mom,
Yes.
Dad, Daddy, Daddy.
And he's going to weigh out and say, it's going to cost me another night of video games, but I might try this one more time.
But that's the point, and that's the notion. And again, part of where our society is, we've been taught, or people have been taught, to no longer believe evil is real. I mean, Zoran Mondami, running for mayor in New York City, said that violence is a social construction. It's like, whenever I hear that, someone say something like that, I want to go, come here, let me punch you in the eye.
Yeah.
And then you'll see whether it's a social construction or not.
Yes.
Right? So if you don't believe evil exists, then you can say no video games to someone who murdered his 12-year-old son.
Yes. You could really define just about anything psychologically as a struggle, as a hurt, as a cry for need. And I think of Hitler. He's killed 7 million Jews. He's crying out for help. Help this man. Right. He doesn't need to be punished. He needs to be helped. And so if you have a criminal justice system that no longer believes in evil,
right,
wrong, or simply blatant sin, but everything is an expression and can be defined in terms of, well, they're ignorant actually, because if they knew how good it is to be good, so we need to inform them, we need to help them, and if you look biblically, ignorance does not produce rebellion. Rebellion produces ignorance.
Excellent.
It's the other way around.
Yeah, that is the biblical.
Romans 1, having rejected God, their minds became darkened.
Right.
It wasn't the other way around.
No.
And so the world looks at these people are ignorant.
Right.
This person who's a womanizer, he's ignorant of how wonderful it is to be a dad and a father.
Right.
No, he's in rebellion.
Right.
He's in sin, and so he's deceived.
Right.
The rebellion caused the ignorance. Yes, he doesn't understand, but it wasn't the ignorance that caused
No, you're
rebellion.
right. The other side of that love, punishment, love, justice coin, though, is that, and again, you've brought this up earlier, it's loving to society to do away with the evildoer. It's loving to society that the evildoer serve an appropriate sentence. It's loving to society so that we aren't afraid to walk outside at night, so that we aren't afraid to go shopping at night, so that we can go to sleep at night without deadbolting every door 5 times.
Yeah.
It's loving to society that evildoers are dealt with. And the notion of love for society, again, is just entirely absent today.
Yes.
Completely gone.
Completely gone. Completely gone. I think there's another factor with the idea of the alternative to death penalty is in prison. And can't we keep these people in prison because don't people reform, and can't they be reformed? And I say, yes, they can be reformed. I believe our system is broken, and it doesn't overall reform people, but make them harder. You become like those you spend time with, and you get hardened criminals being with others, and it hardens them. Are there godly people that go into prisons and change people's lives? Yes.
Yes.
But what's never really thought about is, what if, because of something like the capital punishment, what if the consequences are severe enough that it does restrain the person in the beginning from the even action, and he never winds up in prison?
Right.
That's never weighed out. It's never allowed to be thought about.
Right.
And I believe, yes, people can be reformed, but also, what if it was made to be so severe, the punishment, that they actually had the fear of doing it, and never went to prison in the first place?
And I happen to believe that's why God spoke, if you take a life, your life shall be taken. I believe he spoke that to begin with, so that people would go, we need to teach one another that murder is wrong, and we need to teach one another there are appropriate ways to deal with your anger, and we need to teach people there are inappropriate ways to deal with your anger or your petty covetousness or your jealousy or whatever motivates murder, right?
Yeah.
There are appropriate ways to deal with that and inappropriate ways. And in fact, there's such an inappropriate way of dealing with that if you do, we're going to have to take your life because we love everybody too much.
Yeah.
For that to go on.
Mankind's creative. They'll find other ways. And if there is the fear of murder, they'll be, even though they're mad, they'll probably find another way.
Right.
Some won't, but there'll be a lesson to the others.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they say most murders happen in fits of rage. There's not the percentage of like premeditated, cold-blooded assassinations are pretty minute compared to the number of murders that happened under fits of rage where you just lose your, whatever happens. Lord knows I don't want to describe that.
Yeah. So
that maybe the notion of restraint won't work because that's a common argument against capital punishment, right? Actually, the notion that they're going to have their life taken won't keep them in that fit of rage from doing it. What's the answer? How do you respond to that challenge?
I do believe there'll always be a certain percentage of people. It doesn't matter. No amount of restraint is capable for them. I think part of the issue is, will it restrain some of the others that will pause? I do believe there will still be people that that's not a restraint for them. But I think you could probably follow that in all aspects of society.
Exactly.
Where you have a percentage that nothing works.
Exactly.
Nothing works. And
on a whole matter of other issues.
Yes. Yeah. And there's probably no way of calculating when there's severe punishment. Let's say you're at a college and you create all sorts of chaos at your college because you disagree with things, but you can never be kicked out.
Right.
As a student.
Right.
No matter what protest you do, you could throw rocks into the dorm windows.
Spray paint the dean's office window. Yeah.
Will there be people that just they're rebels? They will do whatever they want to do. Yes.
Right.
But if they're told you will be removed for various things,
right,
you're going to get a percentage that could care less. They'll take the risk. They can't resist.
Right.
But there will be those others, and what my hope is that percentage will increase, though you really can't calculate.
And that's what we're talking about when we talk about society. We're talking about tipping points. We want 0.00000001 people committing murder, not 0.001 people committing murder.
Yes.
Because the tapestry, the matrix, the overall flavor and character of society is worse off when those numbers go up even slightly. Or when we have half the population living on the government welfare, that's way really, really bad for society, versus only 10% of the population are living on. So you create a whole different society and culture for the thresholds, the tipping points that you're willing to pass over.
Yes. You care for the individual. This woman who has 2 kids out of wedlock, you give her more money because you care about her. When she has her third, you have to deal with human nature and at a certain point say, I can't just be concerned of how happy her life is.
Right.
I know that if I accommodate that, it will grow.
Right. And so with violence.
Yeah.
Right? The more you countenance violence, the more you say, rioting and burning down police precincts and looting minority-owned laundromats in Minneapolis, it's actually justifiable as long as your rage is appropriately directed.
Yes. You're frustrated.
You're going to get more of it.
Yeah.
Right? Versus if you say, actually, that was way over the bound. That was way over the line of a way to make your voice heard.
Yeah.
Then you create a different society.
Yes.
And then people move out of cities and they go in other places to escape a hellhole like that.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But no one talks that way. No one will, in the popular, it's just all like you've said throughout the show. It's just all, well, but how are we going to deal with the murderer?
Yes. He's frustrated. He came from a very bad family. And I'm like...
He got bullied at school.
Yes.
We can all understand why someone would murder someone when they got bullied at school.
Yes.
Wait, what?
Yes. He grasps the hurt even more than others. Maybe he's more culpable.
Maybe he's more sensitive that he murdered someone because he understood the pathos of being bullied at school.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, it's just utterly insane.
Yes.
What else do you have there? What else was in the mix as you were chewing through it? Yeah, I just want to say that when I think about killing and murder and capital punishment, or even the penal system, I truly believe one of the phrases I say on my show frequently is chronological snobbery. Mm-hmm. And we live in an era so permeated by the myth of progress, right? Mm-hmm. I don't have to go down to the river and carry multiple buckets of water back up the hillside for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and occasional bath. And I can just turn on the spigot, the shower head, and I have running water. And the myth of progress has caused us to believe that we are superior to every generation who's ever lived. Mm-hmm. We today in the 21st century as the church are superior to all of the church that has lived for 20 centuries. And I find that profoundly arrogant. Yeah. For instance, if the church for 1700 years, because for the first 200 years they had no power.
Yeah.
They weren't even talking much about how to manage society. But for 1700 years, if the church not only believed capital punishment was fitting, but biblical and God ordained, and then comes along the 20th century and the 21st century, and the church says, actually, we're smarter now and we're morally superior now, and we read scripture more clearly than you ever did.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, wait a minute. Were they wrong for 1700 years?
Yeah.
Or is the church today overreading something? And I think the whole issue says to me more about where the church is today, that we would only care for the murderer, or that holy God in heaven, we would stop believing in the existence of evil, or that holy God in heaven, we would look seriously at a political candidate who says violence is only a construct, that we would take someone seriously like that. Mm-hmm. All of that says more to me about who we are as human beings, as a society, as a church today, than it says anything about scripture or capital punishment or people being murdered or killed. Or it says to me, oh my God, there is a massive shift away from biblical reality here.
Yes.
And there are different things driving it, but we are a long way from a biblical framing on things, right?
Yes. Examples would be, Jesus, the way he said things were kind of off-putting. Today, we've learned how to say it better and be more seeker-sensitive and respond better. There's like this spirit of the world, this spirit of sophistication. We're more sophisticated than that.
Yeah.
And we know the complexities of the struggles of each human being and why he murdered that person, and that we can help him and fix him.
Yeah.
And so it's not about punishment, but if it's like as we progress in this sophistication, I've noticed just lawlessness spreading.
Yeah.
Not dealt with, it's spreading, it's not working.
Right.
Our sophisticated new ways of doing things that's supposedly more loving, caring, is actually creating chaos and lawlessness.
Yeah, and it's making it so society is not as pleasant to live in as 50 years ago when we went to bed at night in our little apartment complex in Western Oregon. We never locked the door. I don't think we locked the door when we would leave town.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Well,
Yeah.
what's the difference today? We're aware more of evil because there's more sociopathic, weird evil that's not only being allowed or countenanced, but explained away in our sophistication.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
That's just terrifying to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, again, the whole COVID thing was a blank storm because not that the government or liars in the government would ever want to manipulate us, but that half the population was like, yes, please, I'll take seconds.
Yeah.
I would like 2 servings of your hysteria, and in fact, throw on a dollop of madness on the hysteria, and yes, please, I'll do whatever I'm told. And I'm thinking, holy shnikes, what's that say about society that you would give away your agency in a heartbeat?
I find so many things similar in society to parenting. When I took a parenting class that was very good one time, and they said, it's important to give your child a confidence, but they need to know the world doesn't revolve around them.
Wow.
In your pursuit of their supposed self-esteem and all these other things, you need to tell them there is a societal matrix, and you're going to need to fit into the proper one.
Yeah.
Or things are going to be really bad for you and really hard for you.
Yes.
It's not about adjusting to you.
Yeah.
And if we're telling criminals, it's about your hurts. That's it.
Yeah.
We're just carrying this on in the wrong way.
You're gonna
No, there's a
promulgate-
societal importance
Yeah.
and matrix. We have always married. We have always punished crime. We have
Right.
always... there's certain things that throughout history we said, this needs to work or everything seems to fall apart.
Yeah,
We figured this out.
You just cause the infection to spread faster when you celebrate it or countenance it or welcome it, right?
Yes.
Yeah, no, it's so true.
Yeah.
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 And I remember, Mark, I was in 8th grade, Pilot Butte Junior High in Bend, Oregon. And in my sociology class, we had a citizenship component where we talked about what it meant to be a good citizen, tell the truth, right? A simple list of things that we would work through, the importance of society versus individuals. All that stuff was part of a public school education when I was in 8th grade. I'm pretty sure that would be like 1 in a million, 1 in 10,000 today where that would be being taught.
They'd be concerned that would be considered indoctrination.
Yeah.
Anything moral. They can teach immoral things and it's education, but boy, teach moral things. And we got to be concerned. This is indoctrination.
Well, I think that's why we see more parents
Yeah.
finally just saying we have to homeschool our kids.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this was good. Thank you for taking time to come and think with me about the difference between murder and killing and the biblical layers of that and the sociological layers of that. I've really enjoyed these 2 conversations so far. Mark, thanks for coming and being on the show.
You're welcome. I've enjoyed it too. Let's do it again.
Okay, thanks.